it's Calxiyn here, and before we get started, let me say thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Headmaster Frankie Academy, Professor Edwin, Huntsman Ash Carlton, Huntsman in Training Emmy Cat, and new recruits Sully, Wade, Flashy, Rate Factor 13, Rooter, Jess, Toe Tally, Panic, and $100 patron Alex Wise. So today we are talking about my theory about Oscar. And I mentioned this in one of the last shipping videos we did, depending on if this gets uploaded. Either way, you'll be able to see this referenced in the Oscar and RWBY video. You guys should watch that. So, basically, here's my theory. Are you ready, Hunter? This is gonna blow your mind. My theory is that Ozpin is Oscar that keeps going back in time. Are you with me?
Alright, let me get my pen out.
Alright.
Do you mind if I use this? Do you have a clipboard on hand?
No.
Damn it.
Alright, so here's my first idea. So we're gonna split this up into kind of like almost three different sections, alright? So first...
In lieu of a clipboard, I will be using this Harry Potter, the Chamber of Secrets.
Why don't you just get paper out of the drawer if you really need it that bad. Okay, so...
For Voldemort and Valor!
So here's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You can take that home if you want. I know Hunter likes Harry Potter.
Draco, Dormiz, Necrola, I don't even know what this stuff is.
So anyways, here's my theory. So, imagine Oscar, this is the first timeline. Are you ready?
Okay,
So Oscar grows up, Beacon has fallen because of an incompetent headmaster that isn't Ozpin in this timeline.
Okay.
In this dimension, it is not Ozpin. Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you actually writing this down?
You're fucking right I am.
Alright. So in that dimension, it's not Ozpin. And so, your writing's annoying me though. And so anyway,
well, your convoluted theories annoy me.
Oscar finds out that he has time travel powers at a later age.
Which is just something you find out, I suppose.
Well, he can, we know that Ozpin semblance has to do with time though. We see that in the fight with Cinder.
What?
We know that Ozpin semblance has to do with time. We see that during the fight with Cinder. He slows down time and then he speeds himself up. Are you okay?
Fuck are you talking about?
In the fight with Cinder, when Cinder fights Ozpin, when Ozpin
Clearly,
is fighting...
Crow has a popsicle-related semblance, as you can see in his fight with Winter. No, what are you talking about? He just moves. It's anime, for Christ's sakes. People do that.
No,
they go
he
slow
has
and fast.
He has something to do with...
And then he hits her fast like that. That looks straight out of
It looks like...
What are you
Oh
smoking?
my God. Do we have to watch the clip? We'll be right back, guys. We're gonna watch the clip, okay? So, according to the wiki, Ozpin harbors immense physical power as demonstrated in his fight against Cinder after she became the Full Maiden. He's specifically shown to possess superhuman speed, creating a gray after image when he moves. Whether this is a natural ability or a semblance is unknown. So this is where the time part comes from. People think that this has to do with...
I thought Usain Bolt was fast. It turns out he's a Time Lord.
That's not it. It's because he's creating the after images of himself. People think that that is almost like speeding and dilating time.
Have you ever seen The Matrix? They're
and
just
so
doing
maybe
what
he has
The Matrix was doing.
Yeah, and so maybe he has a Matrix-like superpower, you know? Isn't the Matrix all about bending time though? Because the Matrix has no time?
No, it's about bending space.
Okay, so maybe he can bend space, then he should be able to time travel.
Space and time are in two different dimensions.
Are they?
Yes, they are.
Are they?
Yes, they are.
Are they?
Yes, they are.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Anyway, to me, it looks like it's some kind of time-related power. A lot of people have said this, so it's kind of, like, that's the universal thought here. Whether it's right or not, we don't know, right? Also, Ozpin's silhouette appears in the Aura episode that says, with enough training and focus, a user's aura can turn them into something much more than a man. Which implies that Ozpin is much more than a man. You know what I mean?
Oh, Lord. Metaphor, people. They may not be serious.
Well, Crow is also much more than a man if you think about it.
I know, he's a bird.
I know, people cite that episode, though, for as maybe it's an aura-related thing, him turning into a bird. Anyway, that's not the theory, okay? So you gotta stay with me.
Hypothetically, some crazy
Ozpin can time travel for this theory.
He finds a DeLorean.
Even in the...
Or Salem's secret underground time facility.
You gotta let me talk.
Okay.
Anyways, even in Wizard of Oz, there's kind of, like, it's not that all similar. It's kind of complicated to explain, because in the Wizard of Oz, the wizard's kind of a phony, but the thing is that the wizard can travel back to different, because you remember in Wizard of Oz how Dorothy comes back and she says it's all a dream or whatever, but she goes back home and it may be like 4 days in Munchkin Land, but she wakes up maybe like an hour after the tornado hits. So Munchkin Land has a different...
It's almost like dreams can feel longer than they actually are or
but
something.
in the book, Dorothy doesn't have a dream. Dorothy just goes back home and then they're like, oh, you know, nice to see you, like, how's it go? Like, in the movie, that's a movie-only thing. In the Wizard of Oz books, Dorothy actually went there, and the time is different. Like, she doesn't disappear for 3 days, but they notice that she's gone, I think.
Alright.
It also depends on what Wizard of Oz book that you're reading, because in some versions of the story, Dorothy will go back, and by the time she gets home, they've built a new house already. And so, like, a lot of time has passed, you know, to replace the one that got torn up in the tornado, but then some of them are like, you know, like, hi, sweetie, like, it's time for dinner after the tornado sucked up our house, you know what I mean? And so, it's kind of, basically, the wizard is able to take you out of the time. And it's weird that Munchkin, he got there from a hot air balloon, and so we don't really understand how he got there if they're both if time flows differently there, right? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so a bunch of excusing the crazy science fiction time travel bullshit and then inexplicable references to the Wizard of Oz.
Anyways,
they go back in time.
Can I fit?
I'm not the one going off on tangents here, young lady.
I'm just trying to establish that it may be heavily implied that Ozpin has some sort of time power from his source material and also how he fights.
I'll eat my cat if that happens, however.
This is what I think is this is the theory. Is that Ozpin is inside a boy that names himself Oscar blah 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 Diggs. That is the Wizard of Oz's name before he turns into the wizard.
So he time travels back into the body.
That's not what I'm saying. Be quiet. Let me explain what I'm trying to say. So I think that little Oscar, you know, Oscar is pretty much basically Ozpin before he gets to quote-unquote Oz. You know what I mean? Before he gets to that point in his life. Because in the Wizard of Oz, he was Oscar Diggs, he went to Munchkin Land, and then he kind of, you know, he went to Oz and then he changed. And so here, what I think is happening is, Beacon has fallen, whatever, the world is in chaos, Oscar grows up in this first timeline, and in this timeline,
Beacon falls, so he time travels back.
Oh, I'm not done. All right, so he's a bit older now.
I'm just reading through my sketches.
All right, so well, read in your head. So basically, what happens is that he's like, oh, you know, like I could probably stop Beacon from falling if I was the headmaster because he's young and arrogant and all that bullshit. So when he's at that prime age of however old Ozpin is, Ozpin decides that he is going to go back in time and be the headmaster of Beacon.
And so this is the RWBY timeline.
And so, no.
No.
We haven't even gotten there yet, calm down.
Hell, so that's the pre-RWBY timeline, and this one's the pre-RWBY timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that timeline. So he decides he's gonna do that, right?
Yes.
And so he's the headmaster, but shit still fails. So he's like, oh no, like what are we gonna do? And so then in that timeline, in the second timeline, he goes back in time again.
Wow, that was unnecessary second time travel.
No,
you think they would have found?
This
they would have been
why.
like,
it's because the
like,
only
remember that Oscar kid?
Hunter.
Yeah, he found our DeLorean. Shouldn't we pack it up
God.
somewhere else? No, leave it. All right, cool.
Usually you let me talk through the theory and then comment on it after. Save all your questions and comments until the end.
All right. Hey, man, I'm just trying to draw a diagram.
Anyways, so this is why. It's because, during that World of Remnant about the war and stuff, we kind of know, we know things now, and some of the things that we know is that it's implied that Ozpin, was the king that kind of, like, finished up the war and got the kingdoms together. So basically in this timeline, if Ozpin didn't go back that far in time, then he wouldn't have brought the kingdoms together. The kingdoms would be separate, but they would still establish the schools eventually somehow. And so basically, Ozpin's like, oh shit, like, maybe if we bring the kingdoms together, everything will be fine. So he goes back in time again as the king, and then brings the schools and the kingdoms together, right? Because there was the war. So in the second timeline, what would happen is that the war happened. The kingdoms really never recovered for it. They made peace because they didn't want to fight, but they never, like, got better or anything. And so all of the kingdoms were separate. Like, all of the schools were separate. There would be no, like, Amity Coliseum games where they all come together and do that thing.
So this isn't the RWBY timeline?
No! We haven't even gotten there yet!
Alright, so retroactively, the first timeline is the pre-RWBY, then there's the pre-RWBY, and the pre-RWBY.
Alright, so then he decides to go back in time again and be the king, do the shit, and then we go. Yeah, because the king has his cane, right? And so all of that happens. But he goes back in time, and even though the kingdoms are together, Beacon still falls. And by now, like, he's getting old. Like, he's done with this. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back in time one last time, and I'm going to find people to give the maiden powers to, because somehow I have this magic to bestow. I'm gonna go back in time one final time as an old man, give the powers to the maidens in hope that a future Ozpin establishes the maidens, because that was part of the reason why the king kind of settled down the war, right? Is because in that war, like the episode where we find out about the war, you see that the king was sort of able to cause, like, storms and shit, and so that means that he probably had a maiden that was on their team with them. And so Ozpin goes back in time one final time. I think we're on the third timeline now, and he creates the maidens. And so now Ozpin's like, shit, man, like, this is pretty good. Like, I probably solved everything. We're probably okay now. And so in the RWBY timeline, that is the timeline where Ozpin has gone back in time 3 times. He has gone back in time to make the maidens, to make sure the kingdoms don't want to kill each other anymore and settle peace with them, to establish the school, to become the headmaster of the school, and Beacon still fell anyway. And so that is my theory. And so now in this...
he time travels 4 times.
Hold on. And then in the RWBY timeline, all of this has happened already, right? Because I said in the last timeline that Ozpin was an old man now because he's the old wizard in the story. So how does this Ozpin get here? Well, basically what happened is Oscar grows up again in this, I guess, in the original timeline, but now it's changed because of all the...
Or the pre-RWBY timeline.
Yeah, and so in that timeline, Oscar decides to do the same thing again.
Wait, what the fuck's going on now?
Okay, so I'm saying that the reason why the wizard is stuck in the timeline where the maidens were created. So how did Ozpin become the headmaster of the school? And so I'm basically saying that in the RWBY timeline, Oscar had to go back in time again and become the headmaster. But now all the maidens and stuff has already been done. So in the RWBY timeline, or I guess there's another one before the RWBY timeline, because Ozpin is the headmaster in the RWBY timeline. So basically Oscar went back again because, you know, in the first timeline I said Oscar wanted to go back and fix things, right? And so now
in the RWBY timeline in the 4th season, we are seeing Ozpin somehow go back in time again?
No! Let me finish!
Well, I'm sorry, this is such a sensible theory.
So before the RWBY timeline, there's still one more. There's the one where Oscar wants to go back in time again, but his previous self has already done all the shit that he had to do, so the maidens and stuff. So then Oscar goes back in time one final time to make himself the headmaster of Beacon again. And after that, we are now in that timeline, in the final timeline where the maidens are created, the war is done, Ozpin is the headmaster because Oscar decided to go back and become the headmaster after seeing it fall. Everything is completed with that, and in the RWBY timeline, it's basically that there are 2 Oscars existing in this universe. The older Oscar that went back in time from the last timeline, and now this new Oscar that is growing up with Ozpin in his head because Ozpin... yeah.
That is the stupidest,
what?
most nonsensical, over-encumbered, obtuse, grotesque, unnecessary, fucking ridiculous, pointless, adds nothing to the plot.
It does
Story.
though. Ozpin says that he's made mistakes, that more mistakes than every man, woman, and child. It's because he keeps creating timelines where he keeps fucking up and the school keeps going down. That's what he's doing.
That is he could have just made a bunch of mistakes in his own life.
I know, but
he
we
doesn't
know he's
have to
super
have
old.
multiple lifetimes. He's an old man. It's unnecessary.
The thing
that is literally so stupid.
Shut up. So what the thing is, though, is that we know he's like 1,000 years old. Because he's the wizard
old.
from the Maidens, right?
Sure.
And so how did he do that?
This is something else we don't know for certain.
What?
I will give credit to the idea of Ozpin being like a Doctor Who Time Lord reincarnated thing. The idea that he's like, from Future Diaries.
Yes, exactly!
It was stupid when Future Diaries did it, and it's stupid, more stupid, you found a way doing it right now.
But I like it.
Some people like touching small children.
Oh my god.
It doesn't mean it's okay.
Hunter, that wasn't an appropriate joke for this video.
And yes, I am comparing this theory.
Oh my god. Hunter, okay. I like it. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I like it. Here's why. Let me tell you why. It's because it gives the idea that Ozpin is such a fuck-up that he keeps going back in time, and no matter how many times he can go back and try to fix all his mistakes, Salem will always get the better of him. She will always win, and shit will always fail.
You've been watching too much.
I thought of this months ago, by the way. Oh, we're just doing a video on it now. I don't know. I like it. So what do you think? Now, do you even understand half of the stuff that I just said? How many Ozpins are there, Hunter? But I'm saying that there would basically be a
convolutedly long
There would basically be, like, an infinite amount of Ozpins because Oscar keeps going back in time to fix stuff that he didn't break.
This is like Groundhog's Day, but I'm not enjoying myself.
It would be something like that. It would be that he just keeps going. Like every time he fucks up, he just tries to keep going back in time, and that's created this unstable universe. You know? And no matter what he does, Salem always wins, and that's like the worst part of it all. You know, like, isn't that cool? Isn't that a cool concept? Hunter?
Like, okay, that, like, the whole, like, doing thing, it's good when Rick and Morty did it. It was sketchy, and it was pretty sketchy.
What if it was like Rick and Morty, though?
Well, then the show's tone would totally change. It would be an awkward tonal shift.
Why?
Because RWBY isn't about, like, really bizarre, meta, high-concept science fiction.
I guess, but it's not science fiction, it's magic. He doesn't use science to go back in time, he magically does it.
And, like, suddenly a very linear show would then get, like, really bizarre and Tarantino-y with its way it's described.
I don't know,
also,
I like it.
Frankly, you could have had, like, one or two less, like, time travel skips. Like, that was, I had to keep on adding pre.
I don't know, I just wanted one for everything that I thought that he would have done.
That was
because all we know that he's done is create the Maidens, he fought in the war.
Oh my god!
The
wiki isn't God! The wiki isn't God!
He established...
You don't know these things!
What are you talking about?
You don't know that he's the wizard, you don't...
But it's... Hunter, do you think that he's not the wizard? Do you think that the wizard is another character? The wizard that made the Maidens, do you think that he is not Ozpin? Because you would be an idiot.
My theory? Really?
Yeah.
Really? You're the one who is like, oh no, he went back in time 17 times!
The thing is...
That's completely reasonable, but God forbid you let someone go
Hunter,
crazy.
He either went back in time or he's lived forever, because now all of those wizards are the same person.
He's had, like, regenerative, like, it's passed, like, the role of his, like, the role of Ozpin is passed down, so maybe the wizard was once like kind of like the Time Lord from Doctor Who. That would make more sense because we see.
I'm just saying that they're not separate people. They have to be the same person.
They're connected, but I think they're separate people, but I think they're connected. You know what I mean?
But the Time Lord from Doctor Who just changes his appearance. He keeps all his memories. No, and so he's the same person, isn't it?
No, he loses his memories.
Are you sure?
And he gets new companions. Also, secondly, there's more evidence for my idea because we also see the whole Ozpin.
The thing is, though, is that
secondly, we don't even know if Ozpin, and I don't care, Ozpin, he goes fast. There's no way of knowing that he's a time traveler.
I mean, it seems like he has a time semblance. That would be, I don't know how far back he could go, but maybe, I don't know, maybe he could. The thing is, though, is that they're all the same person. Even if Ozpin...
No, they're related.
No, they're not.
There's probably, like, a title, like 007. Or the Time Lord.
No.
But, because it would make sense.
It is the title. It's a wizard.
It would make sense because we don't know that it titles. We don't know. You have been talking so long. I get my turn.
No, right now.
Two things.
As
we
we're
don't
seeing
know.
Ozpin and Oscar's mind.
We don't know that he can travel time.
Okay, well, let's say that he can.
And two, that's a big if. And two, we see that Ozpin is kind of like this mentor that's passing on the role to Oscar, so I feel like there's evidence leading to that side.
Or he may be a parasite that's gonna take over Oscar's brain.
It was all a dream, and Ruby's still in patch.
But you know what I'm like? Maybe he's not gonna give the role to Oscar. Maybe he's just gonna take over Oscar's body and take over his mind. I think that's a much more likely scenario than just passing down the torch. Because Ozpin has all of the memories from creating the maidens. It seems like that anyway.
I have a theory.
No,
right?
Be quiet with your theory. This is about my theory.
Right?
No.
That the reason why Neo is so quiet, right, is because she's actually she got hit by a car, and now she's. She just hit me.
I didn't. I tried.
And
Hunter.
And she's just imagining all of RWBY. And
Hunter.
As stupid as that sounds, it's not significantly more stupid
Hunter,
than your theory.
Let me finish.
Really, you're not done yet.
No, because usually I say my entire theory and you don't comment and you keep talking. The thing is.
How can I not? It is so aggressively bizarre.
The thing is that Ozpin seems to have all of the knowledge of the Ozpins before him, about the maidens, about all that other shit. So sure, he could have been told it, but it seems more likely, because he's made all those mistakes, that he is the same one from 1,000 years ago.
Just because I read a history book about Anne Boleyn doesn't mean I'm
But
suddenly
this isn't recorded
Anne Boleyn.
Anywhere.
Yes, it is. It's
Where?
recorded history.
Nobody knows about the maidens, though.
Yes, it was a fairy tale.
Yeah, but nobody knows they're still around.
Yeah, but that's just research, you know?
What do you mean?
And also, everyone knows about the history about the kings and all that. That's the same way I know about the War of the Roses. Doesn't mean I'm like a Lannister or a Lancaster, rather.
The thing is that I'm saying that it doesn't seem like that, you know, he's just gonna be like, all right, Oscar, like, we'll see you later, you know, here's all the shit that you need to know, bye. Like, it seems like that they slowly become one person. That they are two minds that become one. Their auras are fused, and soon their minds will be fused. So he is the wizard from the beginning with all of the other... like, all of the other lives of the king and all that they fuse into one man. Like, that's how it seems like it's gonna be right now. We don't know. Like, we don't even know if Ozpin does this on a regular basis or if this is just an accident.
But apparently we know for a fact he can travel through time.
I'm saying he has a time semblance. We don't know if he can time travel.
And yet
it's
your
just
entire theory
for the purpose of this theory, it's that
this is very consequential.
If he can travel, if he has a time-related semblance, maybe it's so strong that he could travel back in time. I don't think that's that crazy, you know what I mean? Because he already has the time semblance to begin. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to be like, oh, so he can just, you know, he seemed like he was going faster and slower with Cinder. What if he went so fast backwards that he could go back in time?
Look at me, I'm scooting around. I must be traveling through time.
You're so dumb sometimes, you know?
I'm dumb?
Yes!
I'm dumb?
It's because it isn't that hard to imagine. Whether it happens in the show, maybe not.
I just think it's just totally bizarre and not gonna happen.
The thing is that you think that the wizard and Ozpin are different people.
All I'm saying...
And that's highly unrealistic.
I think there's a connection. I just don't think they're the exact same person.
Well, they're
is
not
what
the
I'm
exact
saying.
same, but I'm saying that
I know.
they have all of their memories as a collective.
Even that, I have a certain degree of I think he just does research.
What do
Like
you
she-
mean? He's
because
not a scientist.
He's a professor, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but that's
He's an intellectual.
so is
also,
Crow's a teacher too.
also, if you're fighting an ancient evil, presumably you would look through ancient texts to try to find ways
the
to
thing
fight
is,
an
he
ancient
doesn't
evil.
need to because he is ancient.
Oh, he's old. I just think that my theory is that he's passed on as almost like a role.
And I said that I
that
agreed,
they're
but not that he just tells them all the shit and then it's time to go. We don't even know if this is something Ozpin does on a regular day-to-day basis. Like, this could have been a freak accident. Like, he could have lived like 1,000 years up until now and he was like, oh shit,
But
I guess I'm dead.
I just think you're like 16 going back and forth through time thing. If that happens, I will never I'll
I'm not saying it would happen.
I will
I'm saying it
appear
would
on
be
this
cool.
show naked because apparently nothing matters anymore.
I'm saying it would be cool. It would be cool. It would have cool...
No, it would be
It would have cool character motivation. Because think about it. Like, think about going back in time, trying to stop the world's destruction, and no matter how many times you go back, you always mess up. Like, how hopeless and sad would you be?
It's just, but
You
then
know?
how would Ozpin seem so, like, fine with himself?
Because, I don't
That's
know. because
totally
he thinks-
against his... It worked with Yuno because Yuno was, like, insane. She was, like,
The thing is, though, is that he thinks another version of himself will keep going back to fix it.
But then it's like, what did it, like, I
Like,
just
he
feel-
keeps waiting
if
to
you
see if
kept
in his
on-
timeline something, like, that the
If
school
you-
doesn't fall. You know what I
If
mean?
you kept on going back to the past to try to save a doomed world, you would
Yeah!
not be as calm and
And that's what I'm
collective
saying,
and
is that,
joking
like,
as
it's all,
Ozpin is.
It's all like, you know,
You
it's
would
all
be
a
like
facade,
Yuno.
man.
You'd be like Yuno, where she's totally insane.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, you know, he would be this, like, tortured mind, you know?
I don't buy it.
Oh my god.
I think it's dumb. I don't buy it.
Well, I like it. I made this all by myself, and I'm...
I know, and it shows.
What do you mean?
Remember how you got all that hate on that Attack on Titan video and it was totally, like, not deserved?
Yeah?
You deserve to get hate for
Oh,
this theory.
well, that's not nice. I like my theory. Yes, it's convoluted, but there's reasons that I like it outside of its convolutedness for character purposes.
I just
think
think
this would
that-
be nice for his character. I'm
that-
not saying it would be nice for the show. Like, those are two different things. Like, I don't think that this fits into the show because the show isn't really on that path. Like, I don't feel like it's going in that direction. But character-wise, I feel like that it's good for him. You know? Like, it's a good thing as a character choice, but it wouldn't fit in with this setting. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it would be good for maybe, like, an AU sort of situation. You know what I mean, right? Because stuff can be good for individual characters, but that doesn't mean it would necessarily fit in with the show those characters are in. Can we agree on, like, that, at least?
That it totally doesn't fit in the show yet.
Yeah, but it fits with Ozpin.
I disagree with that.
Well, I think that, like, his calm facade is just something that helps him get through the day when he knows that there's impending evil.
Maybe, man, maybe. He seems
know what I mean?
He seems a little
Like,
too at ease with the world.
And since you brought up Attack on Titan, there's a spoiler for this and I won't tell you, but one of the characters has a similar, that they've been acting a certain way the whole time and it's all been sort of this deception trick. You know what I mean? And so it's a similar kind of, I feel like it's a similar sort of situation where somebody would put on a facade to try and just get through their life, you know? That they've done so much wrong that they don't know how to get by it anymore. Even Mikasa's like that to a certain extent. She's someone who's kind of, I wouldn't say she's like tortured or anything, but her demeanor's definitely, it definitely switches a lot because of the death of her parents. You know what I mean? And you can kind of see that maybe she has a little bit of a mask there and she's very stoic and all of these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that Ozpin, if anything, even without this time travel theory, he's someone that is very tortured because he knows that there's nothing he can do to stop it, that it's all up to the kids of this generation, and that, you know, he just kind of has to trust them. You know what I'm saying?
Alright.
Is that it? Are we done?
I mean, I think it's
I can't
totally
believe you
bizarre.
spent this entire time shitting on me. We could have finished this video so much faster if you just let me talk.
Yeah, but if I let you talk, I would have to let that be,
You could have saved your questions to the end.
Enter the world.
Anyway, this video is almost 30 minutes long thanks to you and your nonsense, so we're gonna end it now. I might need to edit this later. Anyway, guys.
Oh my god, if you edit me out, I'll cry.
I will edit you out.
Oh,
You're getting deleted.
I'm being censored.
Anyway, guys, we will see you later. I hope that you enjoyed this video, if not this theory. Anyway, Hunter has some angst lately, so he just keeps interrupting me. We've been recording. This is all pre-recorded. We've been recording all day, and all he's done is be annoying. So I don't know what to say about that. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoy this. Thank you to Headmaster Frankie, Academy Professor Edwin, Huntsman Ash Carlton, Huntsman in Training, Emmy Academy Recruit Sully, Wade, Flashy, Rage Factor 13, Rooter, Jess, Totally, Panic, and $100 patron Alex Bison. So yeah, guys, I hope that you like this, and we'll see you later. Bye!